By supporting my channel through patreon.com, you are aiding in the progress and production of these videos. You are also helping me raise the funds to launch official archaeological excavations throughout North America to uncover more true Hebrew artifacts and remains in this land. You will also see exclusive content that you will find nowhere else. Number 1. The Red Sea. The Red Sea that we know of today was not called the Red Sea before the 1800s. In fact, before that, it was called Sinus Arabicus, which means Sea of Arabia, and the Erythraean Sea by the Europeans. It was called the Sea of Mecca by the Arabs. However, some Latin map makers did label the modern Red Sea as Mar Rubrum, meaning Red Sea. However, they did this just to fit a biblical account in the Middle East, because no locals have ever called this sea the Red Sea before the 1800s. However, many of the first maps of California Gulf literally call the California Gulf the Red Sea and Mar Rubrum or Mar Vermejo. Rubrum means red and Vermejo means the brightest shade of red. This is because the Gulf of California tends to have a seasonal red algae bloom in its waters as well as red microplankton. Even to this day, the Gulf of California is called the Vermilion Sea. Vermilion, again, is the brightest shade of red. Now, Red Sea in Hebrew is Yom Suf, which means woolly sea or sea of reeds. This is because of all the grasses that grow on the coast of the sea. The Gulf of California has many species of grass that grow on the shore, even a species of dark red grass that literally look like wool. However, the Middle East, in the exact location where the Red Sea crossing supposedly took place, there are no grasses, just pure desert. Number 2, Sinaloa. There is a state in western Mexico that is called Sinaloa, which was inhabited by the Cajita Indians. In the Cajitan language, Sina means pitaya. A pitaya is a plant with thorny stalks, and laboa, which means rounded. The pitaya, or the dragon fruit, comes from a cactus. This cactus has very sharp thorns, and that's what Sina means, thorns. The Aztec language comes from a similar origin as the Cajitan, and in the Aztec language, thorn is wa shishai, though not exact. Both Cajitan and Aztecian show word for thorn that is similar to the Hebraic Sinai or Sinai, meaning thorny. The Cajitan peoples, like all other Uto-Aztecan peoples, migrated from the north in an area of southwestern United States, including the Mojave Desert. The Mojave Desert has hundreds of species of sharp thorn cacti and thousands of Joshua trees. Joshua trees are only found in the Mojave Desert, and their leaves are literally so sharp that they could be used to make knives. The modern area called Sinai today has little to no vegetation, let alone thorny plants. The true Sinai Desert is the Mojave Desert. Number 3, Black Mountain Wilderness. Now that we know the true land of Sinai is the Mojave Desert, the Mountain Horeb, or Mount Sinai, would be easy to find. According to Exodus 19 and 12, the children of Israel were commanded not to touch the border of Mount Sinai. This is important because not all mountains have a border. If a mountain is a part of a mountain range, it will not have a border. Mount Sinai had to be a singular mountain, meaning it stood alone, not in a range with other mountains. Scholars and biblical archaeologists still to this day do not know these. exact location of Mount Sinai, but they have two options where they believe Mount Sinai is. One is Jebel Musa, which is located on the Sinai Peninsula, and the other is Jebel al-Lawz, located on the western Arabian Peninsula. Both of these mountains are a part of a range and have no clear border. In fact, neither of these mountains even have an empty space near it for 2 million Israelites to camp by. The whole area of those places are covered in mountains and will be impossible for an exodus to happen within. And although archaeologists and scientists have been looking in this area since the early 1900s, not one piece of proof has been found in these areas that prove an exodus could have happened there. So when looking for Mount Sinai in the Mojave Desert, we must first look for a mountain with a border that stands alone. Now, an interesting fact is every mountain that stands alone and is not in a group with other mountains is volcanic. This is because mountains are formed when tectonic plates push together, and volcanoes are formed when magma pushes its way through the earth. Mountains are always in ranges unless they're volcanic. That makes sense because in Hebrew, Hareb means destroyer or destruction. The Mojave Desert has many volcanoes, but there is definitely one that is huge and definitely stands out in shape: the Black Mountain Wilderness of California. In the book of Exodus chapter 20, we see that when Yah came down on Mount Sinai, there was fire and smoke coming out of the mountain, and the whole earth shook around it. Now, there is no Hebrew word or phrase that describes a volcanic eruption, but we can tell that that is obvious of what's going on here. The perimeter of this mountain is about 30 miles, and the area of this mountain is about 50 square miles. It is huge and one of the most obvious dormant volcanoes in the Mojave Desert. However, the mountain is not tall. It's only about 4,000 feet. That's a suitable height for Moses, Aaron, Joshua, Nadab, Abihu, and the 70 elders of Israel to climb with little difficulty. The mountains in the Middle East are too unrealistically high and steep to be climbed by all these people, especially these elderly men. And a mountain had to be wide too in order for only these people to look upon Yah and no one else. Black Mountain Wilderness of California would be the perfect mountain to be Mount Sinai. Now I know what you're thinking. Why does this mountain look like this from the top? Why is it split perfectly down the middle in half? This could be explained in 1 Kings chapter 19. Another volcanic eruption happened in this chapter when Elijah went to Mount Horeb to speak with Yah. In verse 11, we see that there was a great wind upon the mountain that literally broke the mountain in half. In the scripture, it says, it rent the mountain. To rend means to tear something in half. Right before every volcanic eruption, there is a big gust of air that has to come first out of the mountain in order to open a pathway. This is called volcanic winds. After the wind, the scripture says there was an earthquake, and after the earthquake, there was a fire. Before every volcanic eruption, there is an earthquake. This is because tectonic plates have to move in order for a vent to open up. Now, as lava poured out of this mountain, Elijah would not know how to describe it other than just fire, because there was no Hebrew word for lava. But my question is, how could there be fire on any of the mountains in the Middle East that they claim to be Mount Sinai, since these mountains are not volcanic? Rocks cannot simply catch on fire by themselves. So the reason why Black Mountain in Mojave Desert looks like this is because a great eruption happened during the time of Elijah that split the mountain in two. 4. Possible altar of Moses. At the end of Exodus chapter 20, Moses was commanded to build an altar under the mount. He was given specific instructions on how to build this altar. If he wanted to make the altar out of stone, it had to be unhewn stone and not cut stone. And also, the altar could not have steps. It had to be made at ground level. At the base of Black Mountain Wilderness, even to this day, There is a stone-made structure that is rectangular in shape. It is made of uncut, unhewn stone. It even has a path and an entrance so that one can walk in with an animal and not have to cross over as a step. It has an empty space in between it where wood and coal would have went. On the top of the altar, wooden sticks would have been placed upon it for the dead animal to lay upon it, and the fire would blaze underneath. And today, after over 3,000 years, only the stones would have been left. It is obvious that this altar has been there for a pretty long time because some of the stones at the bottom appear to be sunk into the ground. Who knows how tall this altar could have originally been? After 3,000 years, this altar is still standing because, believe it or not, rocks can balance on each other pretty easily and last that way for thousands of years and not be affected due to their central density. No, I do not know for a fact if this is Moses' altar or not, but it definitely was built in a Hebrew style. Number 5. Elijah's Cave. Also in Jebel al-Lawz, there is a cave in the mountain that is important because in 1 Kings chapter 19, Elijah went inside of a cave in Mount Horeb. However, this is the only cave in the entire mount and would have been difficult to find right away. However, Black Mountain Wilderness has more than 5 caves within the soluble limestone wall that Elijah could have went in and found and slept comfortably right away. Number 6. Rainbow Basin. When Israel finally made their way to Sinai, they began to thirst for water because Sinai had no water. So Moses was commanded to strike a rock in front of all the elders of Israel. It is important to understand that this water did not come out of a regular stone or boulder. It came out of a mountain. Sometimes in scripture, a mountain is called a rock. Just like Exodus 33 and 21, Mount Horeb was called a rock. If Moses were to hit a small regular rock, there would be no way for millions of people to be supplied with water, especially for 2 years in Mount Sinai. Several streams had to have came out of this one rock and caused actual rivers to flow to quench the thirst of millions of people. In order for this to happen, there had to be an immense amount of groundwater beneath the area. And it is a fact that under the Mojave Desert, there literally is a large underground lake called an aquifer. South of Black Mountain Wilderness, there is a small mountain with several dry streams of water that once flowed out of it. This rock provided water to the children of Israel the entire 2 years while they were in Sinai. Today there is even a dry lake that streams lead into. If you trace back the streams all the way to the mountain, you will see that the streams would have came out of the ground of the mountain. This mountain is too small to be snow-capped, so it's impossible for the streams to be made out of melted snow. The streams had to originate underneath the mountain, inside the earth. This area today is known as Rainbow Basin because the walls of the mountain are multicolored. I find this ironic because the rainbow in the sky is a covenant that the earth will never be flooded again. What if a rainbow on earth means necessary floods will be provided through the love of our Creator? Just a thought. But the reason behind the rainbow colors is because this mountain was made out of sedimentary flint rock. This is exactly what scripture says. Deuteronomy 8 and 15 says, water came out of a rock made out of flint. The so-called split rock of Horeb in Saudi Arabia is not made of flint rock. Now, when the children of Israel left Sinai and made their way to the wilderness of Zin, they became thirsty again. Now this time Moses became very angry with Israel and smote the rock twice, but he was commanded to speak to it. But nevertheless, water still came out of this rock, enough to quench the thirst of Israel once again. In order for water to come out of a rock, there has to be volcanoes around it to heat up the groundwater beneath it. In Migration Series Part 3 and 4, I prove the land of Zin, aka Kadesh Barnea, is southwestern Utah. Underneath this region, there is lots of groundwater as well as the only volcanoes in Utah. Zin means flat in Hebrew, and this is one of the flattest area in Utah other than the salt flats. Just like Zin in scripture, southwest Utah has groundwater as well as flat land. Modern Kadesh Barnea has neither of these. When you look at this land closely from satellite view, you will see a dormant volcano with many streams of water coming from around it. Number 7. Mathematics. Deuteronomy 2:1 states that Zin was exactly 11 days' journey from Mount Horeb. A person can go about 30 miles in one 12-hour day. So 11 days will give me 330 miles. As you can see, proved with Google Earth, if one were to walk from Black Mountain Wilderness all the way to southwestern Utah in the exact area where I stated was Zin, going along the Colorado River, passing up Seir, it will be exactly 330 miles, exactly 11 days. This adds up perfectly. The distance from modern Sinai to modern Kadesh is only 4 to 5 days. This does not add up. Also, going from those two locations in the Middle East, they would not have to pass or go through Mount Seir, but in North America they would. I explained the true location of Mount Seir in Migration Series 4. The Red Sea crossing also does not mathematically fit the Middle Eastern model, because in the Middle Eastern model, the area where the Red Sea crossing supposedly took place was the Aqaba Gulf. The Aqaba Gulf is too deep to be the Red Sea crossing site. Its depth is about 500 meters deep, and the drop is very steep. In order for this to be the Red Sea crossing site, 2 million people would have to walk down a 500-meter mountain, then climb back up a 500-meter mountain. But that's not even the worst part. In the Middle Eastern model, in order to cross the Red Sea, you must go east. But according to scripture, the wind that split the sea was an east wind. That means that the wind was traveling west, but coming from the east, meaning the wind would literally be slapping the children of Israel in the face as they crossed the sea. They would be traveling against the grain. According to Exodus 14, the wind blew against the sea all night, and the waters did not go back to normal until the morning, meaning the children of Israel passed through the sea while the wind was still blowing for no more than 12 hours. In America, the Red Sea would have been crossed in the northern bay of the California Gulf. The water there is shallow, it's no deeper than 50 meters, and the seafloor is flat, making it a perfect crossing point for the Israelites. Also, they will be traveling west in the same direction of the wind, meaning the wind would actually be assisting them, causing them to walk faster. If you like to build your ruach or your spirit, you must like to build your health as well. Check out our website, J&R Eden Herbs, for all your holistic needs. We have over 100 quality products that include supplements, teas, soaps, incenses, tonics, and more at very affordable prices. Click our link in the description to heal yourself today.